Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tex Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. It's March 20th, 2018. We have a bit of a blizzard outside today, so might be snowed in for a little while, but we'll just hunker down and bear down, get ready for springtime, which is, I think technically it's either March 21st or, well, I don't remember when it is exactly, but it's coming up pretty quickly. So I think summer, it's like June something or another, so yeah, spring probably is about late March. But yeah, ultimately today, a little bit of snow. Looks like the temps are slightly below freezing, unfortunately, so we won't be able to experience any outdoor activities this evening, it appears. But yeah, today I was gonna, since we're snowed in, why don't we talk about something like weightlifting, for example. You know, that's something you do inside. Occasionally you can probably do it outside too, but you know, if you got cast iron equipment or steel and you leave that in the elements, it's going to get all rusty and whatnot. So it's just a good idea to just do it inside, more or less. And there are a few, for human beings, most of us, pretty much anybody living in the 21st century can live a sedative lifestyle if they choose to. You know, we're not hunter-gatherers or foragers or, you know, adventurers anymore. Well, technically, yeah, we still are adventurers, but you know, we're basically no longer hunter-gatherers. Anyone can live a sedative lifestyle if they choose to. Doesn't mean it's good or bad or in between or neutral. It's your choice. So most of us, maybe not most of us, but 50-50 probably do live a sedative lifestyle. So from my personal experience, it is a good idea to supplement your lifestyle with strength training, exercising, things of that nature. That's why the past few weeks, you know, we've been basically just been focusing exclusively on health. You know, backyard chickens, you grow healthy organic food, gardening, you grow locally sourced organic food and cage-free and all that. And canoeing, you get outside, you enjoy the great outdoors, good exercise. Biking, great exercise. Running, also great exercise. And weightlifting, today we'll discuss strength training. Now there's a few different methods that you can approach the idea of weightlifting. Either you can say you want to have big arms or big legs or look good and things of that nature, or you can say you want to look huge and very, very strong person, or you can say you want to have a beach body and look all slim and cut up and just a good-looking guy or gal or whatever the case may be. And then as you get old, well, from what I've noticed, as I get older, parts of your body tend to get more sore and achy, especially if you're living a sedative lifestyle. You know, if your job just consists of sitting at a computer or sitting at a desk or sitting in a semi-truck or flying a hot air balloon, maybe you operate a locomotive and you're just sitting in the train all day. So those types of professions don't really require a whole lot of exercise, obviously. So it is a good idea to supplement it with weight training. Then you'll add more muscle to stabilize your joints so you're not getting sore back or sore knee or sore neck or things of that nature. Now ultimately, if you're weightlifting just weird, if you got some weird weightlifting regimen where you're working your upper body a whole bunch, you don't work your lower legs a lot, then you create upper body mass, and then it might put more stress on your knees or your hips or things like that. So there is also that to keep in mind. But from what I've noticed though, for functional, I'm just going to mainly focus on functional strength training. Now I know it sounds like a cop-out for, oh, you're too lazy to put in the work to look good or big or strong or fast and all that stuff. So yeah, ultimately there might be a slight element of truth to that. I mean, in this day and age, it's basically, I mean, there's so many drugs and supplements out there that if anybody wants to look really ripped and physically fit, they could, you know, with some side effects, of course, or with a downside, or whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, functional strength training is what I thought would be most productive for people, especially once you get into your 30s and you just want to live an honest, hardworking lifestyle, raise a family, make your communities great again. It's just something that only requires 3 days a week, 2 hours a day at the most. And you don't really have to think about it much either. And what I found, because see, how I came to that decision is the last place I was working at, I got really small. I'm only like 5'10", 5'11", so and I was about 120 some pounds. Like rolled out of a sarcophagus and all that. So ultimately, living in a cold climate like this, when you're holding that low of a body weight, you get cold very quickly. And in fact, you need to wear wool undergarments and wool socks and big jackets. And if you're in the same room as other people of greater mass, you're going to have to put on more clothes to maintain a consistent temperature so that everybody's comfortable in the room. So ultimately, the goal there was to add weight mostly. And obviously, adding muscle is preferable to fat, of course. Of course, fat will accomplish the objective, but you just want to add muscle because you don't want to look like a land whale or anything like that. So what I found is that there's a program out there called Starting Strength, and that's mostly focused on just doing functional compound lifts. You have low bar back squat, deadlift, power clean, overhead press, bench press. And then you can do a few other things that include a lot of your upper body muscles like pull-ups, chin-ups, and dips. And that's basically all there is to it. It's not complicating, it's not difficult, it's not shocking the muscle or volumetric training or CrossFit or anything like that. It's just, what it basically is, 3 days a week, you do low back squat every day, and then you can alternate bench and overhead press, and then power clean and deadlift 3 days a week. That's basically all it is. Now, yeah, if you're during the summertime when you're doing work outside and putting a lot of effort into that too, then of course you want to make weightlifting supplemental towards living, towards your lifestyle. For example, if you have the choice of tilling your garden or resting so you can lift more weights the next day, it's probably a better idea to just go ahead and till your garden and maybe go light on your weightlifting the next day. Because if your life revolves around weightlifting, it's kind of, unless you're a professional, you're getting paid to do it, or you're being you're inspiring other people to do it if you're really good at it, or you have the physiological structure to make a living, like if you're a football player or a pro wrestler or something, then yeah, it makes sense that would then be your life. So you would want to revolve other less significant objects around that lifestyle. But for most people, myself especially, using weightlifting as a supplement to your normal life is generally the idea. So with the Starting Strength, you squat, overhead press, and deadlift 3 days a week, and then alternate power clean and regular bench for the overhead and the deadlift. It's real simple to do. It's just of course you want to. It's 3 sets of 5 reps for each lift, and then basically you write down your weight, and then the next time you give it a shot or you give it a crack, you just try to lift a little bit more. It's incredibly simple. It just follows basic progressive muscle adaptation. That's all it is. So if you're not, now the first few months you do it, obviously you're going to gain strength because your neural pathways will start firing and then recruiting more muscles to do the lifts. So your neural pathways will get more efficient, they'll start firing more. So the first 3 months you might go from bench pressing 100 pounds to 200 pounds in 3 months. But then after you hit those 3 months, and then you need to start depending more on actual muscle density, muscle growth, and then you need to start eating a lot more food and resting and relaxing, and even to some extent, you do have to make some changes to your regular life, because say for example you might nap in the evening time because you expended so much more energy weightlifting during the day or weightlifting during lunch break or whatever. Just basic things like that. So the whole premise is, say you burn 3,000 calories a day, so you're going to want to eat 3,200 calories a day. And 3,500 calories is 1 pound. So if you're eating 3,200 and burning 3,000 in one day, after 17 and a half days, you'll gain a pound theoretically. Now, of course, you always have water weight, water retention, and all these other factors too that play into fluctuating weight. So it is, you don't necessarily need to track your weight and body mass and all that other goofy stuff throughout the whole process, but it is a good idea to document your food intake and how many calories you're taking in a day, because say the first 3 months you're going to gain a lot of strength. You can do no wrong. You'll feel like you'll no longer feel like a low test, low energy soy boy, zombie, teeth gnashing parasite and all that. You'll gain a lot of strength, feel good about yourself, feel like you've made the right choice. But inevitably you will hit some type of wall. I mean, you might get sick for a couple of weeks, you might have a foodborne illness, or you just maybe go on vacation and then you kind of let yourself go a little bit. So your strength will vacillate after that certain period of time, at which point you can then refer back to what you're eating, how much you're eating, how much rest and relaxation you're getting. And that's why having the simple, progressive, adaptive strength training program like that is very helpful. Because if you were just going to the gym and just doing random exercises, it'd be very difficult to do a comparative analysis between what you did today and what you did 3 months ago. Because if you're doing just a bunch of random lifts and putting weight on and then lifting until you get tired and can't lift anymore, you're not really sure if you're actually stronger than you were 3 months ago. But for some people it works out though, just to not even think about anything, not write down what you're eating or nothing, just go to the gym, work out, leave, talk to people, pat a few people on the back, slap a few asses, and just have a good time. I mean, that definitely absolutely works for people. If you live a moderately active lifestyle, then there's probably not even a point to weight training in the first place. But if you're sitting around all day at an office or desk job, or if your body weight gets dangerously low, then it's a good idea to establish some type of weightlifting here. But yeah, basically with the simple, progressive, adaptive weight program, you can just say, all right, so I bench pressed 200 pounds today, and then on Friday I bench pressed 198. So why didn't I be able to bench 200? So you'll kind of look at your food intake and see, all right, well, say you didn't eat any eggs, or you didn't get as much protein as you thought you maybe should have, or you maybe you went on a 2-day food fast or something. So you can say almost, not quite definitively, but with relative certainty that, okay, this is why I was not able to lift more than I did 4 days ago, because I did not eat enough, or I did not eat in a surplus, so I broke down the muscle and then did not put the necessary nutrients and ingredients back to build the muscle back up. Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, when you weightlift, you break the muscle down, so the idea is to build it back up. And if you're not putting in the proper nutrients, you're not going to be able to build it up. And then, of course, everybody has different physiology too. Everybody has different muscle to fat cell ratio. They have different tendon quantities of muscle, the fast twitch, slow twitch fibers, that's all different in people. Where you store your fat, where your muscles attach to your bones, just the rate of muscle growth, the rate of fat growth, all those things are different in everybody. Everybody's body's a little different. The world's strongest man, Mark Henry, he's obviously, as you can clearly see, he obviously has a slightly different physiology than I would. So if I tried to set goals that were equivalent to the world's strongest man, obviously I'd set myself up for failure. I'd have to probably stick a lot of needles in my ass, and it still wouldn't achieve the objective there. So you definitely need to keep that in mind. The best person you can compare yourself to is yourself from a week or a month ago. Now that doesn't mean that every time you lift weights you're going to see improvement. Because like I said before, there's always external influences that can sort of derail your progress. And then sometimes too you might hit this weird funny wall where say you're squatting 260 pounds and then all of a sudden you can't squat 240 for a couple weeks or months, and there's just some things are just not explainable. I mean, maybe there's something weird going on with the body where gets out of balance and it feels like it has to take muscle away from this side and do something. I don't really know, but every once in a while you will have you'll hit a weird wall like that, or a plateau, as it's probably called in weightlifting circles. So ultimately, as long as you're paying close attention to your food intake, your rest and relaxation, you'll have a pretty good. Generally, what you want to do is, before you even show up at the gym, you want to have a pretty good idea based on, all right, this is what I ate the last couple days, this is how long it's been since I last worked out, this is how much weight I last lifted. So when I show up at the gym today, I'm probably going to be able to squat 235 for 5 reps on the first set, and then bump it up a couple more pounds and a couple more pounds. And usually, if by the third set, if you say you're doing like 245 on the third set and you power it up for 6 reps, then that's a pretty good indicator that as long as you maintain your food intake and you get plenty of rest and relaxation, that you're going to be able to lift more weight than that next time. You know, it's really that simple. It sounds like basic elementary. I mean, there's no shocking the muscle or, you know, offload or onload or anything. It's just simple linear progress. And of course, after this is just for novice lifters. I mean, after a year or two, then you probably step into you know, advanced lifting, and then you got to start doing weird things where you lift really hard one day, say Monday, and then ease up on it a little bit on Wednesday, and then hit it hard again on Friday. You know, once you get a lot of muscle mass, and you have to maintain that, and when you break that muscle mass down, then it takes even longer to repair. So that's why when you're an advanced lifter, then you need to incorporate those more elaborate workout plans too. And then of course too, you know, like I said earlier, weightlifting is just a supplement in your life. So if you get up to, you know, you think you're a pretty strong guy, you can bench press 2 plates, you can squat 3 plates, you can deadlift 4 plates for 5 reps. Which would, you know, it probably puts you at a pretty high percentage of people for strength. And ultimately, if you want to just get to that point and then just ride it out and live your life outside of weightlifting and then just go maintain for 3 days a week, you know, that probably works for a lot of people. Because you can definitely get into a trap where you're so focused on making sure you're hitting your macronutrient targets and your calorie intake, and you're just spending a whole lot of time paying attention to all your food and making sure you're getting all the sleep and everything too, that it is easy to get swept up into all that and to get kind of carried away with it too. You know, just I think it's just a natural human instinct. You want to pretty much be, if you're going to put time into anything, you want to be very good at it. And for us, it's very difficult to come to grips with the fact that we're not physiologically similar to everybody else. Because I mean, you look at an NFL football player, obviously those guys are going to be able to, the first time they touch a weight, they can probably lift more weights than 95% of the population. It's just physiology right there. You know, everybody has their little strengths and weaknesses. So mostly the idea is just to find your strength, to take it and run with it, more or less. But I mean, ultimately, if your strength is drawing, and you're sitting at a table all day, and then you're losing all your weight, you know, your back and neck are sore all the time, so you just hate drawing. That's when doing stuff like weightlifting or swimming or things like that come into your life, because then you can use that a little bit to supplement what you truly are good at. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go balls deep with weightlifting and, you know, buy a bunch of supplements at GNC and take a bunch of powders and get a bunch of needles from Mexico and do all that stuff. I mean, it's not for everybody. That's basically the reality of it. But you know, if, say for example, you're a pretty strong guy, you know, you look decent, you got a good face, you know, you got your jaw aesthetics, and you got blue eyes, and you know, you look like a supermodel, and you think like, wow, you know, if I just get a little bit stronger, I can go from, having 20 followers on YouTube to having millions of followers and then get paid thousands of dollars of doing it. For them people, it might be a good idea to stick needles in your ass and then look like you know what the hell you're doing. I mean, obviously, if you look like me and you're trying to run a YouTube channel, nobody's going to take you seriously. They'll just probably laugh it off and then move on to Mark Henry if he's got his own YouTube channel. So I mean, you kind of, not necessarily saying that you're taking a shortcut or what you're doing is wrong, because ultimately that's just how our society works, in the material society works. We look up to superheroes or people of superhero caliber. I mean, pro wrestling, especially in the 80s, there's probably 99% of the guys were doing all kinds of funny stuff that we'd never want our kids to touch, but that's how it was. It's all fun and games. It was live hard, live fast, die young, all that. So it's, who's to say whether it's right or wrong? It's totally up to somebody else. I mean, if you're in college and you're on the football team and you have a choice between bagging groceries the rest of your life or getting paid millions of dollars to play in the NFL, but then all you have to do is take some growth hormone vials for a few months and push yourself over the edge to where you can be a millionaire, then probably is a good idea to do it then. I mean, you only live once, so the body is capable of some pretty amazing things too. So you can put a lot of, I'm not advocating or encouraging or even condoning drug usage, but I'm just saying that this is why stuff like this exists, because people are put in very tough circumstances where they have to make decisions that could significantly influence their future. It could be the difference of fame and fortune or living on a street corner somewhere. So that's why this stuff, just for some casual guy off the street that works as an electrical technician, I mean, it doesn't really seem to make much sense why they'd even bother to spend money at GNC, much less go online and find some doctor prescription for human growth hormone from South America or something like that. So, and then too, as far as supplements go, you got like whey protein and all this other goofy stuff. And ultimately, yeah, you can look at the economics and say, well, I can buy 30 grams of protein for $1 if I get it in powder form, or I can buy a can of tuna, which is like 26 grams, and that costs, $2. So from an economic perspective, it just makes more sense to buy the whey protein. But I mean, this goes back to common sense, because buying the powders and at the GNC, I mean, yeah, you feel good, you feel like you're hardcore, you're dedicated to exercising and weightlifting and all that. But I mean, you got to consider the macronutrients and the other factors that play in it. Because if you just eat a can of tuna, you're going to get your magnesium, your selenium, whatever else comes from the ocean and tuna fish. Now ultimately, tuna is highly, I don't want to call it pasteurized, but they heat it up to where it kills off all the bacteria and everything too. So it is a dead food product, so it doesn't really have the beneficial enzymes, but it does have the trace minerals and the macronutrients that a lot of people need. And then of course, yeah, I guess probably has mercury and other bad stuff too, but ultimately it's not very heavily processed. Preferably, frozen food is probably better than canned food, because canned food, you have to add all the preservatives to it so it can sit on a shelf for a very long period of time and not go rancid. So, I mean, yeah, the choice between a can of tuna or whey protein powder, you're probably better off just doing the can of tuna. Yeah, I mean, of course you can supplement, if you don't have a lot of time and you just want to pour a bunch of protein powder in a milk and drink that, then yeah, that works too. And if you're going to get milk, just try to get a clean, locally organic sourced cow for the milk. But ultimately, we're coming up to a break here, so Good Times Balls Deep will be airing in the very near future. We're working out some of the kinks here. Testing out some of the sound editing equipment. It's a very long process, and we had to ship in new items, test them out, see if they're gonna work. Do our little documentation to see, okay, for this person who talks in this range of frequencies, this sound editor is probably gonna work best. For this other person, that's gonna work best. So we had to finagle all those details to bring the highest quality for you, the ladies and gentlemen at home that are probably going to be listening to Good Times Balls Deep. So ultimately, that's our main focus and priority now. And the host of the show, he just keeps coming up with more great ideas and of how we're going to make America great, make St. Cloud great again, make Minnesota great again. So ultimately, things are definitely moving forward in that direction there. So we hope to be bringing you that in the very near future. And that being said, you're listening to Tex Messages with the parasite Rick Tex. I'll be back in 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Tex Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. It's the 7th episode of Tex Messages. We're on our 3rd week now. Say we're definitely hitting on 4 cylinders. I mean, it won't, obviously Good Times Balls Deep will consistently hit on 8 or 12 or even 16 cylinders, probably hybrid, electric motor actuated system of parallel drive and everything like that too. So it is exciting though. We're moving forward, getting things done, getting things out of the way, getting some good topics out there to the general public in good discussion, just trying to provide a nice education for everybody. And what I want to touch on the first segment was the NASCAR race. So it was a was in Fontana. It was relatively uneventful. Kevin Harvick managed to run into the wall initially. Otherwise, everyone was saying he probably would have won, which kind of makes sense. Then, of course, Martin Truex, he wins the race by a significant margin. The interesting thing about him and his team, though, every other NASCAR team is located in North Carolina, but the Furniture Row team is located in Colorado. I think it's Denver, but somewhere around there. So it is pretty interesting, and it's just a single car team too. A lot of the teams in NASCAR, one guy owns like 3 or 4 cars. So you might have Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Carl Edwards all on the same team or something like that, or Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, or Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. Those you have 2 or 3 or 4 car teams. So the Martin Truex deal, everyone is just. They are literally outside of the box. The box would be North Carolina, and they're in Colorado. So it is pretty cool to see them, win. Even though their driver it doesn't seem like he has a winning mentality. But the thing about NASCAR is it's a team of many, maybe not hundreds of people, but a lot of people. So if you got engineers in the shop and you got your pit crew and they have winning mentalities, you can still get away with a driver that doesn't have a winning mentality. You're never gonna, when you get so many human factors like that together, it's not everybody is gonna be 100% all in, winning at all costs by any means necessary. But that's what sort of makes NASCAR great, and that's football and hockey too are the same thing. You got everybody is part of a team. 2 or 3 guys really like winning. The rest of the guys could care less. So it's just a matter of who executes their plays. There's a little bit of luck and everything too. So yeah, that's all there is to that. And this week too, at Menards they got a special on the seed starter packs. So this is probably the time of the year where you want to get all those little trays and start putting your seeds in the soil and then growing them indoors. Find a nice south-facing window. That way, when summer is close and it's right around the corner, you'll have a decent plant with a relatively strong root system that you can go ahead and transplant outside, and then you'll be able to grow your own food and enjoy the freedom and health of doing so. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you got the time and you got the energy and the drive, you can definitely look into doing that. But yeah, the other day I picked up a few more indoor plants because when I went on last week, as you noticed from the different background, today we're back in the Tex Messages studio. But last week we had to go on travel to try to procure some more sponsors. So I went ahead and I had to leave here for a few days. And then when I came back, it was just like a wall of just horrible, awful stench that just hit me in the face. And the thing is, if you're living in a house with dangerous or potentially toxic fumes, you're not really going to know, because after a while you sort of get used to the smell. It's like if your own breath smells bad, you can't really smell it because you just get used to it, so your brain doesn't even register it as a bad smell. So anytime I leave for a few days, it's like I always get hit with just this awful stench, and ultimately I don't even know where it comes from. If it's just maybe a dirty dish or something like that, just something that can just permeate throughout the house and make it smell bad. So ultimately I thought it was a good idea to buy a few more indoor plants and stick them in some new pots and give them that liquid plant feed and stick them in a south window and see how they go. Why not? More plants the better, basically. Plus it helps with humidity too. During winter time when it gets really dry in the air, like I got a hygrometer here and it's usually, see, the temperature in here is probably about 50 degrees. That's why I got a wool undershirt on right now. But the thing is, if you're using heaters, natural gas heaters, electric baseboard, whatever the case, hot water heaters, whatever they are, there's not a lot of moisture in the air, so you're gonna get down to where your skin starts to get dry, and your hair starts to get dry too, or flaky and all that stuff too. And then of course you want to have your soft water too for that. So you want to make sure you have a decently humid environment. And indoor plants definitely help for that as well. Of course, when you're watering them too, yeah, some of the water's going to evaporate and go into the air, so that there's also that. And then during the summertime, if you got the air conditioning on, that sort of acts as a dehumidifier, so that'll take some moisture out of the air. But usually in the summertime, there's relatively little problem with humidity in the air, so then you don't need to worry too much about that. But yeah, ultimately getting back to weightlifting here, just a quick compendium. Yeah, what I found that works best, just doing compound functional weightlifting for older people. If you're in your teens and everything, then you get to do whatever you want. But for older people that live a sedative lifestyle and don't want to really put too much thought or even time into weightlifting, just 3 days a week, hour and a half, 2 hours, squat, press, overhead press, deadlift, bench, and pull-ups, curl-ups, chin-ups, all that. And really, if you got a basement with a decently high ceiling, I mean, if you had an 8-foot high ceiling, you probably could do the overhead press. And all you need to do is go online and buy a squat rack. It'll come in a box. You just stick it in your basement, and then you get a barbell and all the big weights and everything too. And it's pretty much all you need. It's very, very simple. You don't need to have these weeder multi-thousand-pound stations in your living room that you're going to use for 3 months and then get sick of them because you don't see results. So that's why it's just better to get the squat rack. Plus the squat rack, if you get a squat rack and a barbell, all of that stuff, say you get an injury or you hate weightlifting after a certain period of time, all of that stuff you could sell it again. I mean, a squat rack is just a couple pieces of metal, and a barbell is just more pieces of cast iron, and then the barbells themselves are cast iron too, or steel or whatever, alloyed steel. So they're just things you can resell. But if you get one of those goofy workouts, 8-in-1 workout stations that cost you thousands of dollars, and then you put it in your basement, and then after a few months you want to get rid of the thing, nobody's going to want to go to your house and dismantle it and haul it out and actually pay you for it. So most of the time, you pretty much have to get rid of them things for free, or you can bring them to a scrapyard or something and then get the 5 cents per 100 pounds or whatever they pay nowadays. It's probably like $80 per ton, which really isn't that much. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, just squat rack is pretty much all you need. Then with the squat rack, it has the pull-up and chin-up bar, and then you can get some accessories to add dips to it, and then just spend a decent $100, $150 on a barbell that's not going to snap and knock your head off or anything. And then just get the big weights, the 2-inch with the 2-inch holes. You don't want to start off with the pussy stuff. If you're getting these little flimsy bars and you got those cement weights and everything, you'll grow out of them things in a month. And then after that, you'll probably just think you're a big, strong, tough guy because you maxed out on these concrete weights that anybody can max out on after a very short period of time. So yeah, just get the tough guy, the 45 pounders, 35 pounders, get a few 100 pounds, and for most people, they'll probably be able to deadlift 300 pounds after a few months. Like me, I'm basically the small. Out of my cousins, I'm the smallest guy pretty much, and I'm just small frame, small muscles, small arms, and all that stuff too. But ultimately, I was still able to progress and realize that even for something like the deadlift, you need a couple plates after a few months. And the thing with weightlifting is too, if you're getting into it and you start out at 200 pounds, see, like me, I'm about 160. So if you're 200 pounds or more and you start off with weightlifting, unless you're like a total blubber lard ass, but if you got a decent amount of muscle, if your muscle to fat ratios are above average, or maybe even a little below average, or not horrible, probably after 3 months you'll easily be able to lift more than me if I was doing the program for a couple years or a year or so. It's just because that's how bodies are made. People just naturally have more muscle than the other person, or they have bigger frames or whatever. They got more tendons attached to their arms and all that stuff too. So I mean, if you say you're 200 pounds and you're just starting out, you're probably going to be able, you'll start off at a pretty low level. Like say you might only be able to bench 120 pounds because your neural pathways just aren't firing efficiently and they're not used to those muscle movements, so they haven't allocated the necessarily neurological resources to and nerve endings to recruit those muscles to do what you want them to do. But after a few months and you do establish all those pathways, then you'll probably be able to pretty easily lift your body weight. So if you're 200, you might even gain a little bit weight then, so you'll probably be able to lift 210 pounds after just a few months. If you stick with the starting strength, adaptive, practical programming methods. And then you'll probably already be stronger than me. I mean, that's the thing with weightlifting. I could probably weightlift for 3-4 years. Some guy that's been sitting on his couch and that weighs 300 pounds could weightlift for 2 months and already be stronger than me. That's just how it is. So ultimately, but I mean, it's not really an ego thing. It's just more, it's good to do, it's fun to do, you feel healthy, you can kind of challenge yourself and you can see that, hey, I'm not eating the right foods, or I'm not eating enough food, or I'm not getting enough rest. So if you're not doing those proper things, it shows definitively in your weightlifting performance. So if your weightlifting performance starts to degrade, it's giving you a good idea that other parts of your body are probably starting to degrade too. Because if your body is not making the extra muscle it needs to adapt to the added stresses that you're putting on it through weightlifting, then your body is probably not adapting to the necessarily brain cells that you need to grow if you're reading more books or learning stuff in school. So that's another collateral, advantage to weightlifting and being serious about sticking to a program. Now that doesn't mean you need to train for Mr. Olympia or to be a bodybuilder or anything. Put 80 to 90% effort into every day you're gonna weightlift, because whether you spend an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours in the gym, if you're just gonna half-ass it, you're not gonna get anything out of it. It's like you're there, you may as well put in the effort, and yeah, you're going to be sore, you're going to be tired sometimes, but hey, if you don't really have much else to do for the rest of the day, then yeah, why not? Just give it hell and then go home and nap for an hour or two on the couch and then get up and start doing important things. I mean, it's just, to a lot of people it's probably a hobby too, because you get that, the camaraderie if you belong to a gym. Or if you just have a squat rack in your basement and it's just convenient, it's there, you can put on some podcast, or when good times, you can have good times balls deep on in the background while you're weightlifting, and you're just having a good time. You can maybe watch some TV at the same time too. So yeah, I mean, you want to have it to be fun. You don't really want to stress out too much about it. So when I first started out, I'd get up to a certain point where after a few months, I was already, not already, but I started off squatting like 95 pounds, and then after 3 months it was probably about 200 pounds, and I was thinking like, oh man, this is so much weight, how am I going to push this up the next day? So I was kind of defeating myself in a way, but it was sort of, once I got to the point where the day before I was stressing out about if I'm going to even be able to do the lifts the next day, that was kind of a signal that you probably should pull the range back a little bit, because you can't take something like this very seriously if it's not a central part of your life. I mean, it's a supplemental part of your life. It's not life or death, it's not your job, not getting paid to do it. It's just something that you do because it makes you great again. It takes you from being good to being great or being excellent or whatever. I mean, it's not going to take you from being a completely worthless, pathetic, nobody, loser, peon to being good or great. I mean, it's adding a frame to a foundation, or adding siding to a frame, something like that. So yeah, ultimately, just try to have fun with it. If probably one of the hardest things that I've noticed is when you hit a wall, then you're not able to lift weights, so you start failing on your lifts. Instead of lifting 5 reps, you lift 2 reps or 3 reps. I mean, it's probably the worst feeling ever when Monday you lifted 215 pounds on a squat for 5 reps, and then Wednesday you load it up with 215 on your second set and you can't even do 2 reps. I mean, it's horrible, it's a terrible feeling, but it's going to happen to anybody. For whatever the reason, maybe your technique gets a little off balance or off whack, or just something, you didn't eat enough or whatever the case may be. But over a long period of time, you can sort of identify and know, even like I said in the first thing, even before you get to the gym, you know that, yeah, I'm probably going to be able to hit my typical list because I rested properly, I ate properly, I wasn't stressing out the night before. In fact, I didn't even think about it until I had to show up at the gym or show up in your basement or show up at the squat rack or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, ultimately, it looks like we're hitting a break again here. Well, I'll try to provide a compendium of all this in the third segment here. And we're gonna have a show, Good Times, Balls Deep, in the very near future. It'll cover more dynamic topics with the 4-man discussion panel, and it's gonna obviously be of better quality than text messages, and it'll probably be geared towards, I think, pretty much everybody can enjoy it. I mean, I know I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm already just pumped up for all the winning that's gonna happen with Good Times, Balls Deep, and we're gonna try to have the best camera equipment, the best speaker, microphones, the best background. Just try the best of the best, more or less. And, the host, I mean, he's already the best of the best, so it's just it's more or less trying to build around him and his talents and his skill set and his abilities. And then, of course, the discussion panel too. I mean, there's always going to be people there that good, hardworking, honest people that are just trying to make their communities great again, make St. Cloud great again, make their families great again, make Minnesota great again, make America great again. It'll pretty much be a 360 win. So, I mean, I'll be super excited when the day comes and we are able to bring you Good Times, Balls Deep. And it's definitely should be coming in the very near future. But as of right now, you're listening to Text Messages on the Parasite Rick Tex. Be back in 3 minutes. Welcome back to Tex Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex, and we're on the 7th episode. Got a little bit of a blizzard outside. What that sort of tells you is that snow is still in the air. However, it looks like in about 25 days the Princeton Speedway is going to open up for the season, and it looks like they're going to focus more on kids and children and appeasing them, which is actually a very wonderful thing, because some of my most fondest memories growing up as a child were probably in the early 90s. Sauk Centre Speedway first opened up in central Minnesota, and it was right along the freeway. It was I-94 Speedway. It was probably literally right in the middle of Minnesota. But yeah, it was just, we would go there on a Friday night and just hang out and watch these super high-powered cars, driving on these ovals, navigating the track. And these ultra-talented, skilled drivers, just these guys that, back then there's still a lot of safety equipment too, so I mean there was always inherent risks to racing. In fact, one of the races they had to actually call in a helicopter because there was a very bad accident. On the exit to the track there was sort of a part where the wall jutted out a little bit, and then the cars, they went between, basically in the corner, the entrance of turn 1, right after the finish line is where the cars exited the track, and then they went to the outside. So then on the inside of that, there was a part where the wall sort of jetted out, and later on they put a bunch of barrels there or something, or rubber, something like that, so that it would act as an accident damper. But there was a car that did hit that once, and then he got like a broken arm, so they had to airlift him out of there. Fortunately, we weren't at that race, so it was probably good, because it might have been a very traumatizing experience for a young child to see an accident like that. But for the most part, it was just good old-fashioned entertainment, just to see big, high-powered cars screaming at you with all their flashy colors, just flying around the track, hitting the low side, the top side. It's like watching art in motion, basically, and then to know of all the science that goes behind the cars and all the effort that just hard-working, honest people put in. Yeah, there probably is some cheating that goes into the cars to give drivers an advantage, but that's just... People just want to put their creativity into it, and sometimes creativity doesn't always align with the rules. That's just the nature of the game. So yeah, when we were younger, when I was a lot younger, probably 7 or 8 years old, we'd go to Sauk Centre. Those are probably the earliest memories of being awake after midnight or 1 a.m. Even on the weekends too. And usually if you do remember being awake past midnight or 1 a.m., you probably had a pretty fun evening, or maybe the fun was just beginning at that time too. So ultimately, yeah, it was great. It's a good thing it's a good thing to bring kids out to those type of events too. And of course, there's always, it's going to be loud. There's going to be dirt flying too, so you want to make sure, to be safe. Wear safety glasses and earmuffs and all that good fun stuff, because last thing you'd want to do is bring your kids out to a racetrack and then a rock, hits him in the face or something, or knocks his eye out. That's definitely not what you would want as a memorable experience from a racetrack. But at the same hand too, the inherent dangers, even as ridiculous as it sounds, even for the fans, are sort of what makes dirt track racing great again. As that's one of those rare sports or activities that's actually better in person than on TV. Because if you watch World of Outlaws, late models, or sprint cars on TV, I mean, yeah, they're hauling ass, they're going fast, the cars look good, they put a lot of work in it too. But you don't really feel you don't get the smell of the methanol, you don't get the rumble of the engine, you don't get the flashy, different angles. You look at the cars, they shine in one angle and shine in the other, and you can't really watch your own preferred driver, see who's driving where at what time, or you can't really watch the whole track if it's on TV, whereas if you're in person, you can pretty much see anything. And then especially the Princeton Speedway, that's only a quarter-mile track, so you can, I shouldn't say it's only a quarter-mile track, it's a quarter-mile track, so you can see down, the whole, you can sit in the corner of turn 1 and you can see, the entrance to turn 3. You can pretty much see the whole track at all times. The lighting is really good too. If you went to Viking Speedway or Arlington in southwest of the metro area, They got half-mile tracks there. So, I mean, you do need to sit up a little bit higher to see across the whole track, but I mean, that there's no sacrifice of the quality of racing as a result of that. I mean, it's still, you know, just as good. Every track has their own little nuances that make them great again and set them apart from all the other tracks too. So I mean, no two tracks are the same. No two races are the same. I mean, every single race is different. There's no race. I mean, they're not even 70% similar to each other. So you know that's what brings me to the track every single week. I mean, you know, I don't even know anybody that races cars, or I don't even go with anybody anymore. It's basically you're watching a hologram in reality, and you can sit. The nice thing about Princeton, as opposed to some of the other tracks, is they don't really have much of a barrier between the stands and the track. And I'm not saying it's dangerous or anything, and they should, but you know that's what makes it awesome that they don't, because you can sit very close to the cars. You know, where the cars are literally maybe 10 yards away from you going into turn one. So you can just sit right next to the track. You know, have your safety glasses on, your ear protectors on too. Yeah, I mean they're you know, I have been hit by the occasional rock or pebble or anything, but it's not going to knock you out or nothing. I mean, yeah, it stings a little bit, but you know that's kind of what makes it fun. You know, you're in that parasympathetic state of mind. You know, the fighter. Obviously, it's ridiculous to say you're in any mortal peril sitting in a stand watching a race, but you know there is. When you get all that noise hitting you and all the smells hitting you and all the rumbles and vibrations, especially on aluminum bleachers, you definitely feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I mean it's just a great time. You know, yeah, you can watch it on TV and it looks fun and games and everything too, but in person there's really no alternative to it. And yeah, it's probably something. You know, like sometimes people comment on, oh, the racing back then is so much better than it is today. But I mean, racing is one of those things where I literally watch it and it's just, I don't think I've ever been bored at a racetrack. I mean, yeah, the cars are just going in circles or turning left or whatever, but I mean, to experience, basically, you're gonna hit with all five of your senses are basically getting stimulated by being at a racetrack. As silly and ridiculous as it may sound, you know, some people just refuse to enjoy themselves. Like some people hate winning. Some people hate being happy or enjoying themselves during certain circumstances. Like they want to prove a point and say, I don't want to enjoy cars going in circles because it sounds stupid. So I'm just going to shut off all these other senses I have in my brain and then just say I hate it, or I don't even want to go to the place, don't even want to go there in the first place because it sounds silly, or maybe a bunch of hillbillies go there and I don't want to be associated with hillbillies. You know, that's human nature. You know, it's kind of a survival instinct that humans have. You know, that I don't know if it's a gut feeling or anything. I mean, I think mostly it's just irrational logic or misguided logic. But yeah, ultimately, kids at the racetrack, it's definitely a great thing. You know, they always have fun. It's safe. It's a good environment to be in. You know, there's people that drink alcohol and stuff, but I mean, you know, it's. Hey, either you spend the night at the racetrack or you spend the night at some crack house party and getting an ass full of trouble. So I mean, it's good, clean entertainment for the entire family. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're some 90-year-old duffer, you can go to the racetrack, sit in the stand, and enjoy it. If you're some 35-year-old businessman guy, you can go to the racetrack and enjoy it. If you're some 5-year-old kid, you can go to the racetrack and have some semblance or some idea of what's going on and enjoy it. So you know, it's just anytime you talk to somebody affiliated with any kind of race, and they always say like, yeah, it's in my blood, you know, it's in my family, you know, my dad's dad raced and all that other good fun stuff. And yeah, I mean, the reason for that is because people that allow themselves to be entertained not really unconditionally entertained, but to not evaluate things from a negative standpoint and just allow themselves to be entertained by things that are exciting to watch and fun to watch. I mean, yeah, is it going to impress anybody if you're a race car fan? Probably not. I mean, if I went out on the street and I said, hey, I'm a NASCAR fan, you know, they're probably going to think I'm some redneck hillbilly guy that drives tractors all day or something like that. You know, there's always those connotations that go with it too. You know, that's totally fine. I mean, it's one of those activities where you don't really need to talk about it which kind of blows a hole in the last 10 minutes of me talking here. But I mean, for the most part, it's just something you do, something you go there, you have fun, you have good positive memories, you're not breaking the law, you're not hurting anybody. I mean, yeah, there is danger to it, both especially as a driver and as spectators too, and even as infield workers and outfield workers and paramedics and all that too. So it's just, but it's not self-destructive in any way. I mean, everyone that's involved with it, especially the car drivers, owners, operators, and builders. I mean, these guys are spending just hours, an inordinate amount of time on just making sure the cars run reliably, and that the tires are good, and the suspension is going to hold up, and the engine is good, and the transmission is working fine, and that all the body panels are in place. There's no broken cracks on the frame or anything like that. And then of course they want to have the car look good too, that numbers are clean, all the sponsors are showing clearly. You know, as a sponsor, it is a very expensive hobby too. That's one of the downsides. And the sanctioning bodies with SOTA, IMCA, DTRA, I guess even to an extent NASCAR sometimes sanctions dirt tracks, but not so much around here. Mostly IMCA and SOTA. You know, their job is to ultimately try to make it fair and balanced. Obviously, fair and balanced doesn't, if you're a watcher of cable news networks, fair and balanced doesn't always mean what you think it should mean. But as it pertains to sanctioned bodies in dirt track racing, fair and balanced is basically they're just trying to make it so that it's not a super duper expensive sport to get into, that it can be, you can get into it, not be a millionaire, and still be fairly competitive. I mean, it's impossible to get a perfect system, because for an A modified, for example, if you want to get the best engine, it's 30 grand. I mean, not too many people are gonna just have 30 grand to drop into an engine. And then when you got to get a big fancy transmission, you got to get the whole car to go with all that stuff too. It tends to become a very expensive hobby. And then a lot of sponsors though. Just about every track you go to, there'll be a few of the core sponsors, just these very skilled, fortunate, blessed people that have a lot of good talents, that they're able to parlay that and live a very wealthy lifestyle. So they're able to provide for the racing community and sponsor a lot of the drivers and help them all with finances and things like that too. So that definitely goes a long ways. And then all the tracks, like, I don't think any dirt track operates to make a, nobody gets into dirt track racing, driver, track owner, infield worker, flagman, 4-H stand worker. Nobody gets into it to make money. It's all fun and games, basically. You know, if you're basically making money off working a day job, and then this is just your hobby. You know, work, family, friends, health, hobby. It's all about keeping all those 5 items in balance. And I mean, yeah, it's an expensive hobby, and you may have to make some sacrifices here and there. If you roll your car over and you wreck the engine, then you might not eat the best food for the week or something like that. So it's kind of, the nice thing here in Minnesota too is there's a pretty long off season. I mean, October through April basically. So there's about 6 months where you don't need to race on a weekly basis or go to the racetrack too. So it's nice to have that time off for both fans and the drivers, so that they can kind of rest and relax and then reload for the next season too. Because if it was a year-round endeavor, yeah, it would probably would get kind of sickening or old after a while. You know, you're just kind of thinking, maybe on Friday night I can go to downtown Minneapolis and party up at the gay 90s instead of going to Princeton and sitting in the stands. So there is that too. I mean, winter does help to just balance everything out in general. You know, it gives you the winter soldier. It's a challenging and trying time. You got to get through winter to really truly enjoy spring and summer and fall. That's sort of how the sine wave works. You know, that's basically how everything in life works, like a sine wave. You're going to go through the troughs and you're going to get the crest in your life. It's just a matter of offsetting them. Yeah, I mean the DC offset. You have DC power and AC power. AC power works like a sine wave. DC is just a straight line. So you're going to have low points. You're going to have high points. It's just a matter of offsetting that DC as high as you can as you can get it. That's really all you can do. And winter is definitely a low point in I think most people's lives. And that was the whole reason to strength training for me. I had to get up to a healthy body. And I will delve back into strength training in a future episode. I mean, I didn't quite get to everything I wanted to get to today. It's easy to get distracted by other subjects and topics, which I apologize to you, the ladies and gentlemen listening at home. But I mean, ultimately, this is the whole premise of Text Messages. It's just no prep work. You just stand up here and say stuff, and ultimately promote Good Times Balls Deep, which is going to be the flagship show, the main course, the main event, the pinnacle of podcast. That's basically what Good Times Balls Deep will be. And I'm not sure yet if I don't know if I should be on the show or not, because it would probably bring it down a little. It's basically the people that look like are scheduled to be on the show they're all just next level, highly intelligent, erudite, educated, scholarly people, and well spoken. They all look good, and if you could smell them, they smell good too. If you could touch them, they probably feel good, and they'll just be people that win at every level in life. It'll be. I mean, if anything, if I'm going to warn the viewers of anything, it's just get ready for the winning. If you're not ready for the winning, you might be a little surprised or be a little overwhelmed when Good Times Balls Deep does hit the airwaves. So that's definitely, it's not really a warning. It's more of a maybe a premonition or a attempted prophecy. Or a recommendation, a prediction. Just get ready for all the winning. It'll come hard. It'll come heavy. You're gonna get overwhelmed by it. There's no doubt about that. I mean, just the idea of Good Times Balls Deep was. I've never really taken drugs to sleep or tranquilizers or anything like that, but I mean, if there was a time in my life that I contemplated taking tranquilizers, it was just how exhilarated I was at the prospect of Good Times Balls Deep. So it does worry me a little bit, because if it does hit the airways, it's hard if I'm going to go on like a 72-hour being awake binge and then start hallucinating and just randomly pass out when if I'm driving a car or something like that. So it's good to be prepared for that. Just be ready for all the winning. That's really all I can recommend now. And ultimately, it looks like we've come to the conclusion of the show. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're in our third week here. We're just moving forward, moving ahead, and maybe if you, the ladies and gentlemen, I have gotten some suggestions for future show topics, so I will probably delve into that. Beehives, raising pigs and cattle, and crop rotation, and you have a chicken coop here, so they eat all the grass, then you move them elsewhere, and they eat all. There have been some suggested topics to the show, so hopefully if I can get more feedback from the ladies and gentlemen at home to provide more of an interactive show once we start getting into dynamic topics, that would be very helpful, and I appreciate it. And once Good Times Balls Deep hits the airwave, I think we're still obviously going to run Text Messages 3 days a week, just because you need to have that sideshow clown attraction to go with the main event too. Just trying to keep everything in balance too. But ultimately, you're listening to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen, on the parasite Rick Tex. Thank you very much.